Welcome to your Houston Rewind for June 12th through the 16th. I'm KHOU 11 digital anchor Brandy Smith. We know catching up on the news can be overwhelming, especially in a city the size of Houston, where it never seems to stop. So every weekend, we take this opportunity to fill you in on some of the stories you may have missed. Let's rewind. The third trial of A.J. Armstrong got postponed Monday. The judge announced just before opening statements were supposed to start that there is, quote, a continual ongoing issue that must be addressed. She didn't elaborate, but cautioned against speculation. Adam Bennett spoke to our legal analyst who believes whatever the issue, it's clearly impactful.
For the second week in a row, a second delay in the third capital murder trial for A.J. Armstrong. Our cameras did not capture Judge Kelly Johnson's announcement because she did not allow them in the courtroom.
I'm not allowed to talk about the case.
She's also not letting Armstrong's lawyers or prosecutors talk publicly about the case.
It's clearly a significant issue.
KHOU 11 legal analyst Carmen Rowe was inside the courtroom today.
Nobody seemed so surprised by it, but they were frustrated that this trial continues to be delayed.
Rowe told me it's unheard of to spend a month picking a jury for a trial, only to delay that trial for nearly 2 months.
There's no question that we may lose some jurors in the course of a 7-week delay on this trial. There are 4 alternates, and there's a good reason for having 4 alternates, as we can see.
It's a 7-week delay in a case that's now nearly 7 years old. Armstrong was 16 when he was charged with shooting and killing his parents, Dawn and Antonio Sr., while they slept inside the family's Southwest Houston home in July of 2016. Prosecutors say both alarm and cell phone records point to the killer being inside the house. But Armstrong told police he saw a masked intruder, and Armstrong's lawyers say there's no forensic evidence linking their client to the crime. Judge Johnson declared mistrials in both previous trials because of deadlocked juries.
I think this case continues to be one of the most unusual trials we've seen in Harris County in several decades.
Opening statements are now scheduled to start the morning of July 31st. Judge Johnson expects the trial will go through late August. A palm tree in Galveston goes up in flames and lands a man behind bars. Matt Doherty explained how the suspect was caught.
The charred trunk of this Mexican fan palm tells a familiar story on Galveston Island, one that's been repeated for 2 decades. This home, built more than 100 years ago, caught fire late last month, but it survived. Others did not. On the early morning of May 30th, a security video shows a dark block on 32nd Street. A man on a bike appears. He pauses in front of a home. Then you can see a small flicker of light near a tree. The man stays there for about 15 seconds, then rides off. Minutes later, that little spark has become a blaze. Not only is the entire palm tree engulfed, but the home is catching fire too. A few days later, the fire marshal's office identified this man from the video, 53-year-old Jason Smith, who they say is the primary suspect in 27 active arson investigations.
Thank God for cameras. And I'm so happy when the day they caught him. It was the best day in Galveston when they caught that guy. It was a blessing.
Because of his work, West has had to follow the arsons, knowing the suspect only struck between 11 p.m. and 5 in the morning. West also knows the arsonist generally sticks to a defined area, primarily setting palm trees on fire between 26th and 32nd Streets. He's even been able to identify the suspect's type.
But he loved the Mexican fan palm.
Okay, just because they
They light up too good for him. He loves it, I guess.
But he just can't understand it.
It's sad that we lost thousands and thousands of palm trees from the freeze, and this guy want to continue to burn palm trees. Like, what is your problem, man?
After all these years, West, like so many others on the island, is just grateful the suspect has been caught and grateful that nobody was killed.
Well, why would you want to burn a healthy palm tree? And you catch somebody's house on fire, you kill a family member, kill a whole household of people? That's very disturbing.
On Galveston Island, I'm Matt Doherty, KHOU 11 News.
Last week, a KHOU 11 viewer sent us photos of thousands of dead fish along the Brazoria County coast. Zach Tawatari went back to the beach to see what a difference a few days makes.
Here we are at Freeport, Texas, Bryan Beach.
After a viewer tip on Friday, we came down to Bryan Beach to see what's known as a fish kill for ourselves. Dead fish as far as the eye could see.
It was definitely one of these kind of just confluence of multiple factors, environmental factors.
But today, a much different scene.
It looks normal like it always is whenever we come out here. It doesn't look any different.
I did have like a fishy smell when I got here, but I didn't even know.
Beachgoers today couldn't even tell because over the weekend, Brazoria County parks worked sun up to sundown to clear most of the beaches of the miles of dead fish.
It was a pretty Herculean effort, quite frankly, by our park staff. As smelly as it was, you get your crews out there, and they start at one end, they'd get it done, they'd push it back onto the dunes and start again.
The event is irregular but not uncommon, according to experts I spoke with, who say the spike in temperatures and relatively calm waters created a lack of oxygen for fish.
It's something that has historically happened here on the upper Texas coast as well as all over the Texas coast.
Burying the fish in the dunes eliminates most of the smell and helps the fish become fertilizer for dune grasses. A Houston ISD teacher reached out to KHOU 11 with concerns that the bilingual programs will be cut at some schools. So we reached out to the district for answers. Maria Aguilera shared what she learned from her conversation with Superintendent Mike Miles.
Jackie Anderson with the Houston Federation of Teachers says she's also been receiving text and emails, all from teachers hearing about cuts to bilingual and fine arts programs and worried about their jobs and student education.
I'm concerned because we hear a lot about cuts, but we're not hearing a lot about what's going to be added to support these students in the 29 schools. Because we know all of those schools were not IR campuses, but they are being affected in this transition.
TEA appointed Superintendent for HISD Mike Miles spoke with us over the phone today to answer some of those concerns about changes to the 29 new education system or NES schools as part of the takeover.
I don't want to promise that nothing will change because that's not true. We do have a program of study and work that the NES schools will have. But again, I think we're going to be able to accommodate most of the programs that are already existing.
As far as teachers losing their jobs, Miles says NES teachers may lose a position, but will not lose their contracted job.
Superintendent Miles said he knows there's anxiety about programs being cut at those 29 schools. He said the district will try to accommodate existing programs. For more of our coverage of the Texas Education Agency takeover of Houston ISD, visit khou.com/education. This week has been the hottest of the year so far, with feels like temperatures well past 100 degrees. If humans are suffering in the heat, pets are too. Janelle Bluda explored ways to keep them safe.
Just in the past few weeks, the Houston SPCA has rescued a number of pets from heat exhaustion, including 4 pups left inside a hot car. Sadly, only 3 of them survived. 2 weeks later, they rescued 2 dogs and a puppy that was kept inside a bird cage in direct sunlight, with the temperature inside reading 105.
We were able to get them in time, but it was just a matter of time. Even an hour later could have been devastating for them.
The Houston SPCA fears rescues like this will only increase as the week goes on.
And so we really need to be aware that this is going to be a dangerous time for animals that are outdoors.
If your pets are left out in the heat without adequate food, water, and shelter, the temperature can quickly become deadly for them because, just like humans, pets too can have a heat stroke.
And they get too hot and they're not able to cool themselves off faster than the heat is kind of raising their body temperature.
Symptoms include fatigue, heavy panting, drooling, even vomiting. If you notice your pup has these, get them out of the heat right away. Cool them with a damp towel and call your vet.
So it's just really important that you get them out of the heat as soon as possible and have some fresh water available for them.
And now, not taking care of your pet can have legal consequences.
It's a responsibility of owners to provide food, water, shelter, and not to keep their animals tied up in a way that they're not able to access those things.
The Houston SPCA has 10 full-time animal cruelty investigators who are constantly doing welfare checks on pets that may be in danger. If you see an animal that you think needs help, you can call them. Their number is on our website, KHOU.com.
Monday is Juneteenth, and a KHOU 11 documentary coming out that day will highlight the holiday's impact on education. Mia Gradney traveled to Galveston to learn more about a man who dedicated 50 years of his life to educating African American students.
John Rufus Gibson, an unsung hero of early educators, a legacy often overlooked, but not lost on people like a longtime Galveston School Board trustee, David O'Neill Jr.
You still can't forget the significance of the impact of the individuals before you.
From 1888 to 1935, Gibson served as the principal of Galveston Central High School, the first public high school for black students west of the Mississippi River.
Most students, people were going to school, it was to the 8th grade. So going to a school like Central, it was like going to a college.
The original permanent structure was stately and elegant, much like the man who quickly rose to school principal after just 3 short years of teaching.
So many people came from near and far to go to school here. All of the rural areas, Brazoria, Sweeney, Bay City, Louisiana, it was just an easy access to them to come here. And Houston was rural. The first high school for Houston, I believe, was Booker Washington, and it was 1926.
Gibson was a graduate of Wilberforce University, the nation's oldest private historically black university, before relocating to Galveston. By 1905, he managed the then new colored branch of Galveston's Rosenberg Library, while also heading up Central High and its evolution through the years. Gibson's impact and influence extends way beyond Central and Galveston, Texas. In 1901, President McKinley appointed Gibson Consul General of Liberia, a West African nation that then had mission schools and even a teacher's college. But by far, his greatest contribution and lasting legacy was at the head of the class, says historian Sam Collins.
There are children and adults still being impacted by his work.
We need more men, specifically men of color, to help educate young people.
Men who will serve the classroom and their community, all while encouraging the next generation and carrying on the legacy of John Rufus Gibson.
This is just one narrative from the collection of stories in KHOU 11's latest Juneteenth special. You can watch Juneteenth 1865 to 2023, The Freedom to Learn, on air on Monday, June 19th at 7 p.m., or you can watch it now wherever you're watching this. Wednesday, we learned more about the Houston police canine that died from heat exhaustion. Aaron the canine worked at Bush Airport as a bomb dog, and we're told his handler is distraught over Aaron's death, which happened inside a patrol car. Adam Bennett talked to a retired canine officer who calls the death a tragic accident.
On the outskirts of Huntsville, we met officers from as far away as Galveston today, training with future police canines at Integrity Canine Texas.
Absolutely love it.
Co-owner Greg Smith, seen here with his last canine partner, Jet.
Zolstein.
Spent 15 of his 25 years at Houston Police Department with their patrol canine unit.
Seems ridiculous to say, but you're actually with that dog more than you are your family. You know, it's like taking care of your kids, and it becomes a bond just like a child.
Smith told me he worked with Aaron's handler during the Super Bowl and other big events.
And I know he is devastated. It's just, him and his dogs are just, it's like the rest of us, just an ultimate bond.
In a statement about Aaron's death posted to their social media pages, police said in part, quote, HPD canine vehicles are equipped with a system that notifies the handler, sounds the horn, activates cooling fans, and rolls down the car windows if for some reason the vehicle shuts down. This did not happen in this instance.
There's the SOS.
Smith showed us the system, which police now say they'll have the vendor immediately inspect in all HPD canine vehicles. For now, Smith told me he's giving the handler his space.
I know me personally, if something like that happened to me, I wouldn't want to talk to anybody. You know, this is a grieving process. It's something you have to go through. It's like losing a family member.
An HPD spokesperson declined interviews and wouldn't answer most of Adam's questions beyond the statement because there is an ongoing investigation. We're a couple weeks into hurricane season and the city of Houston is ready. Cheetah Craft was there as the city was recognized for its weather preps.
Today, the city of Houston received their Storm Ready certification from the National Weather Service, spotlighting the efforts being done to keep this city safe through all weather extremes.
This is a reflection of the city's effort to improve plans related to severe weather hazards. Of course, we get every kind of weather hazard here in the city of Houston, third largest city in America, with sitting on the Gulf of Mexico with hurricanes, floods, heat this week.
Don't forget to download the KHOU 11 Hurricane Preparedness Guide. It includes a checklist of supplies to keep handy and information about evacuation routes, plus much more. You can scan the QR code on your screen or just go to khou.com/hurricane. This is a story that will warm your heart. It's about a 2-year-old girl battling cancer, making memories to help fuel that fight. Sherman Chow introduced us to Danya, the Dalmatian lover.
This was 2-year-old Danya Salem before she went to the doctor on January 3rd. 2 days later, she had brain surgery after being diagnosed with a rare brain cancer that attacks children, a high-grade neuroepithelial tumor.
There's only 24 reported cases.
Mom Yasmin Dudeen looks for ways to lift her daughter's spirits and thought about her love of Dalmatians. Turns out the Richmond Fire Department has one, and when Mom called about a visit, firefighters said,
"Come on, I'll be here in an hour and I'll have it all figured out."
They did, and Danya loved Lady.
As soon as she saw that dog, she just, her face lit up. Dalmatian, that's all she talks about. Lady just rolled out in front of her and she started petting Lady, so I knew it meant the world to her to see the Dalmatian.
Danya spends 2 weeks a month in the hospital. She's admitted 4 days at a time for each chemo session.
She'll receive 2 chemos a day for 4 days in a row. And they're pretty intense chemos. She has to get pre-medicated for nausea and all that.
It's been exhausting for the family of 5 who are grateful for the kindness of strangers. As for Danya's prognosis, Mom asked this of the doctors.
Just tell me that she has a chance. I didn't want to hear the words that, okay, this is, I know it's aggressive and I know it's a brain tumor. I let the rest be to God.
And they enjoy each moment they can. Sherman Chow, KHOU 11 News.
A disabled veteran who investigators say was beaten and robbed may soon be homeless. His caretaker says the VA is denying him the benefits he needs to stay at a VA home, which is where he's been staying since he was forced out of his house by scammers. Grace White explained how things got to this point.
I'm worried. I don't have any place for him to go.
Patty Hallis is the friend who first called police and Adult Protective Services about what was happening to Roma Joe Witten. We first met him in March.
The car that was purchased, did you buy this car?
No.
And since KHOU 11 News aired the 79-year-old story, 3 people have been arrested, accused of moving into his house, beating him, and stealing his money.
They stole everything.
But now he has a new problem. Hallis says she got a call and a copy of this letter saying he may not be able to stay any longer at the VA.
Extremely disappointed in what the VA has done to him.
The letter says he, quote, does not require nursing home care. But Hallis says living on his own is what put him at risk last time.
It should be no questions about him being there. He is not okay to take care of himself.
It's a scam that went even farther than the Harris County Sheriff's Office first realized. They charged 3 people in Witten's case, Holly Coleman, Summer Hampton, and a man that was innocent. Turns out the real suspect was his brother, using his ID, and the lead investigator on the case tells me everyone knew him by the fake name, making it even more complicated.
His brother is basically doing all sorts of crime around Harris County and presenting his ID to the police so that he could get away with the crimes.
The brother they were actually looking for ended up already being in the Harris County Jail. Investigators say Mohibola Malik was arrested in one of Mr. Witten's stolen cars.
During that arrest, he presented the deputies with his brother's identification, trying to conceal the stolen vehicle.
His charges have now been upgraded to aggravated robbery and aggravated kidnapping. Reminders for Hallis why it's important for Witten to be at a place that can protect him.
The community is what got him in trouble. We're going to wind up in the same spot we're in now in 3 to 6 months.
Grace reached out to the Department of Veterans Affairs. A spokesperson told her they can't comment on an individual case without a privacy waiver, but added they would do everything in their power to help veterans and their families. Thursday night's Houston ISD board meeting got off to a contentious start. At least one person was detained by police after he was asked to leave for repeated disruptions. Matt Doherty broke down what happened.
The protesters outside were eventually calmed by officers or asked to leave. Nearly all of those who signed up to speak at tonight's meeting voiced their opposition to the state-appointed Board of Managers. One man was told to stop speaking when one member said she felt threatened after the man began to share the addresses of the board members and their places of employment and the names of their family members.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to please.
I can't hear you. The focus of the meeting tonight was the school district's $2.2 billion budget. Superintendent Mike Miles presented his suggestions for where to make cuts. He proposed reductions to staff that work for HISD central office, not schools. He says those cuts will allow them to increase staff at the schools. Miles guaranteed that schools which are doing fine will not see any resources removed. And he said schools that aren't doing well will get additional resources.
I felt that the more information that people received, even today at the work session, the anxiety level goes down because I think whenever there's an absence of information, there's anxiety.
The superintendent says the price to educate each HISD student has increased by 61% in the past 6 years. At the same time, HISD enrollment has declined by 27,000 students.
Miles says he believes HISD will be able to grow its enrollment when it shows it can provide students with a quality education. Galveston Island State Park got an exciting visitor last weekend. A Kemp's Ridley sea turtle laid a nest there for the second year in a row. Janelle Bluta learned this is great news for the park and the species.
Galveston Island State Park offers visitors a quiet piece of the island, whether they come from out of state or out of the sea.
And it's attracted sea turtles.
The Kemp's Ridley sea turtle is no stranger to the Texas coast.
World's most critically endangered sea turtle, and they are the main nesting sea turtle in our area.
But they hadn't visited Galveston Island State Park in about a decade until one stopped by last year. And this weekend, another Kemp's Ridley found a spot to nest here again.
I think it's exciting because we haven't seen a nesting Kemp's there for so long.
Dr. Christopher Marshall is the director for the Gulf Center for Sea Turtle Research at Texas A&M Galveston. He says on Sunday, a Kemp's Ridley turtle made its way to the sand dunes at the state park and laid 84 eggs. Someone saw her and called his team.
The whole reason for our Sea Aggie Sea Turtle Patrol is to go and monitor our beaches for nests.
Who then, one by one, removed the eggs to take them down south.
All the nests are excavated, they're taken out of the ground and sent to Padre Island National Seashore,
where they can be kept safe.
Those eggs go into an incubation facility where they're protected and then they're released down there.
He says so far this year, his team has excavated 6 nests from Surfside to Bolivar, and this is the first for Galveston. And he says because most sea turtles lay eggs every 2 to 3 years, this is probably not the same turtle they saw last year, which is good news.
If we see more next year, that's definitely going to be showing that the numbers of turtles at least coming to Galveston Island State Park are on the rise. And you could infer that that's good for the population.
Dr. Marshall says because we're still in the middle of sea turtle nesting season, there may be another turtle coming here to nest. And if you see a turtle, you're asked not to approach it, but instead to call their sea turtle hotline. We put their information on our website, KHOU.com.
Katy is a booming suburb with a rich history all its own, and it has a museum that preserves that history. Best of all, it's free to check out.
Katy has a history. The people who lived here had their own interesting stories that are worthy of preserving and telling.
At the Johnny Nelson Katy Heritage Museum, pieces of that history are on display, and checking them out is free for anyone who wants to learn.
Katy was a farming community for most of its history. The big crop here was rice. It reached a peak of about 60,000 acres under cultivation, grown by about 300 rice farmers.
You can find the tools and equipment those farmers used here, including 14 historic tractors.
We have a collection of historic cars as well. We have a couple of Ford Model Ts.
The Model TT here isn't just for display. This actually runs.
These are being restored by the city's fleet department. They're the ones that take care of all of the city vehicles.
That's got to be interesting for them.
It's a learning experience for everybody. They've gotten the hang of it now. It was an adventure all on its own just to learn how to drive them. But once they got the hang of it, they get going pretty well.
Volunteers also restored and expanded a model train set depicting early life in Katy.
Well, I think it gives them a sense of continuity. You can see how things used to be and how that led to the way that things are now. You can see all throughout the museum here how technology has progressed, how the ways that people lived have progressed, and how our modern culture was formed.
From phone switchboards and phone books, remember those, to antique cash registers and check writers, the museum's collection includes too many items to display all at once, so you'll always have incentive to return.
We want to make sure that people coming in have new things to see every time.
Wherever you're watching this, you can check out more hidden gems. There are plenty of options if you're, say, looking for places to take the kids this summer. Friday, Houston police said goodbye to Aaron, the K-9 officer that died in a hot car earlier in the week. Adam Bennett took us to the memorial service.
This morning, cadets and longtime veterans stood side by side around the reflection pond at the Houston Police Academy, reflecting on the life of K-9 officer Aaron.
We thank God for his service and his sacrifice.
The 4-year-old dog died Monday after spending a year and a half as a police canine. Aaron worked at Bush Airport as a bomb-sniffing dog on the same team as Sergeant Clint Mayo.
We're not here just to honor a public service animal. We're here to say goodbye to a friend.
HPD officials told us Aaron's handler left the dog alone in a running, air-conditioned canine vehicle near the Bush Airport training facility. Common and necessary practice, they say, when not engaged in active police work. Police tell us the vehicle unexpectedly shut off and an alert system installed in K-9 units.
There's the SOS.
Like this one shown to me this week by retired HPD K-9 officer Greg Smith failed, so no one realized the engine died until it was too late.
Don't think that because this happened, he didn't care about that dog. He absolutely loved that dog.
Today, Chief Troy Finner presented the American flag to Aaron's handler, who has 40 years of service.
Paul, we're here in your family. We're standing as a family. It's a difficult time.
While the handler did not want to speak publicly, he left receiving a public outpouring of support. Today, police told me they're still investigating what went wrong in this case. They added that the vendor is double-checking the backup systems in every single K-9 vehicle. Reporting from North Houston, Adam Bennett, KHOU 11 News.
Will they or won't they? Texas lawmakers are going back and forth with Governor Greg Abbott over property tax reform. Janelle Bluda checked in on the progress being made during this special session.
Governor Greg Abbott has been hard at work this week, signing bills that are now ready to become law. But in the midst of some of them crossing the finish line, others now will never make it.
All of these bills that have yet to be signed face the possibility, if not the probability, that they're going to be vetoed.
Sunday is the deadline for the governor to stop a bill, and so far this week, he's already vetoed 8.
It's not a very good image to veto bills for no reason other than he didn't get the property tax bill he wants.
But that's what Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is accusing Abbott of, using his veto power to force the Senate into a compromise with the House over a bill that would cut property taxes.
This is targeted vetoing of bills that have nothing to do with the issue at hand, except Paul Bettencourt is the author of those bills.
Patrick says Abbott is targeting, quote, good policy bills that were either sponsored or authored by Houston Senator Paul Bettencourt, who also happens to be the author of the Senate's property tax bill. This week, 6 of the 8 bills vetoed had Betancourt's name on them.
Betancourt has his name on every bill that's of importance to the Lieutenant Governor.
KHOU 11 political analyst Bob Stein says he's surprised the governor is using his veto power.
He vetoed bills he supports.
To try to convince both parties to agree.
It's like little kids fighting, only the governor appears at this point to be more, how can I say, spiteful than the lieutenant governor.
But says despite all the fighting, he thinks a compromise will eventually happen.
Because I think the governor cares more about not only getting something done eventually, but moving on to his other legislative agenda.
In Houston, Janelle Bluda, KHOU 11 News.
For more coverage of KHOU 11 at the Capitol, check out khou.com/politics. This weekend, a young family celebrated their first Father's Day together, but here's the part of the story that got our attention. They got more than 60 ultrasounds during the pregnancy and still managed to keep the baby's sex a surprise. Stephanie Whitfield explains.
Oh, look, he's smiling.
Like all doting parents, Joey and Samantha Paris can't stop taking pictures of their new perfect baby. That's actually been true since before he was born.
We joke that he will be the most photographed baby of all time.
They literally have dozens of pictures like this because Samantha got more than 60 ultrasounds during her pregnancy. The couple lives in Dallas and talked to us through Zoom.
He is such a little miracle baby. And
they spent 4 months in Houston getting treatment at Texas Children's Hospital.
Our baby had hydrops fetalis, which essentially means that the body's filled with fluid.
2 in utero surgeries helped drain the fluid threatening the baby's life. Despite ultrasounds sometimes twice a week, they chose to keep the baby's gender a surprise.
I would say that that's very unusual for a couple to make the effort and keep it as a secret all the way through pregnancy.
The new parents say it gave them hope.
To be able to have that light at the end of the tunnel, to be able to say, hey, there's something that we're looking forward to, obviously the birth itself, but, this added little moment was something that really kept us going.
After 4 months on bed rest, Samantha gave birth to Archie, a happy, healthy baby boy. Stephanie Whitfield, KHOU 11 News.
Hope that helped you catch up on this past week and you're ready for the next one. Remember, you can tune into KHOU 11 on air, online via khou.com and YouTube, as well as by using our free KHOU 11 Plus app on Roku and Fire TV. Have a great week. Good to see you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll see more of KHOU 11's coverage in your feed. And if you're not sure what you want to watch next, try this or this.